Afternoon from Platz der Luftbrücke. So you have this monument behind me. My name is Eugen and I love to travel. And what we have here is actually the representation via a monument of the air bridge that was done between June 1948 and May 1949 by the Americans to West Berlin. So basically West Berlin was cut off from supplies by the Soviets against the agreement that the western sector should be left free and there should be like 3 corridors that supplies can actually get to the city. So yeah, the Americans between June 48 and May 1949 flew about 280,000 sorties with B-29 Fortress bombers repurposed as cargo ships to resupply Berlin. And there were 78 pilots that actually did this flight. So you can see the 78 pilots, their names are engraved on the base of the monument. Can you believe this? So 78 people, mostly Americans, who supplied West Berlin and prevented from starving to death. Finally, in 1949, basically the blockade was lifted and the Soviets agreed to leave 3 corridors in the western part of Berlin, with of course with very rigorous checks, to leave them open so cargo, freight and basically food can get in the city. So it's very, very important, this monument over here. As you can see, it's like the beginning of the air bridge, planes taking off and landing here in West Berlin. Well, they were landing in Tempelhof, which is not very far from here, but yeah, and there the food was distributed across the city. It's a very, very tough time, and it was one of the heroic moments of the American army. If they had one, this is it. And they had many, of course. Right. This is how the area looks like. There's a little park just in front of the monuments. And the area is quite, let's say, a middle class area, more or less. A bit run down, a bit too run down for my liking, because it's near this monument and it should be, let's say, more easy on the eye, but it's not. So yeah, there you go. And it says, because Luftbrücke means air bridge. And it says, in this der Luftbrücke 1948-49. And the monument was erected 3 years after the incident in 1951, because this was the American sector, plus the Luftbrücke, were in like South Berlin, and this was the Allied sector, the western part of Berlin, the American sector, because it was split between the French in the north, the British in the center, and the Americans in the south. And of course, all the eastern part was Russian, was Soviet. So yeah, troubled times. But the monument is in a very, very nice state. You have these flowers that decorated pretty well. I would expect a bit more pomp, a bit more, let's say, markings, more markings to underline the significance of this place, but really not that many. But still, it's a nice monument. And yeah, let's see how the surroundings around the monument and the park really look like. But just outside the park, and the building that you see is actually, or was actually, the terminal of the Tempelhof airport. Because Tempelhof airport is quite large, is unused at the moment, is like left like an open ground for people to do picnics on, to ride the rollerblades, to bike, to do a bit of, let's say, kart racing. And it's so big that it stretches all the way to Tempelhof U-Bahn, which is about 2 stations from here. But it starts from here and it stretches all the way 2 stations. So let me see if we can just safely cross. Yep. This is the Tempelhof airport, the terminals, like there were. There you go. And to my knowledge, the airport is really not in use anymore for passengers, at least. And I don't think it's in use for anything because a lot of people are just parading themselves on the runway and they're just using bicycles and I told you rollerblades and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, let's cross. Yeah. And this is the terminal of this airport, which was built about 100 years ago. So you can imagine it was quite a big deal 100 years ago to have something like this in your country, even though it was built by the dreaded Nazi regime. Yeah. So you have some things here. Yep. Tempelhof Airport. The design. So Ernst Sagabil was the architect, and yeah, it was built during the Nazi times. Well, let's go further on into Platz der Luftbrücke, towards the other side. And you see how the laymen, the normal people, live in this place. We're on the other side and we're in the residential area. And it is a middle class area, kind of. It doesn't look that poor if you come closer to it. The buildings are quite nice. And I'm sure 100 years ago, because these buildings are 100 years or more, these were the pride of Berlin, more or less. Look at the front entrances of the houses. So yeah, we're just across the road from the monument. Look at this. Quite nice, I would say. And they're like 3-4 stories high, and this kind of buildings with very, very high ceiling, very high floors. A lot of space in the apartments, I assume. Well, a lot of space here in these buildings compared to those. Yep. And you have here thematic streets, like Manfred von Richthofen Strasse. The Red Baron, I think, isn't it? And yeah, the area becomes a bit more picturesque as you go on the side streets. But still pretty civilized, pretty clean. And to me it looks pretty livable here in Platz der Luftbrücke. So yeah, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it already, of course. Click notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I'm posting something new. And yeah, we know the drill. So far so good. So what? Bye bye.